parts of the Korean entertainment flywheel were built to kind of reinforce what it became as Korean entertainment, from K-pop to K-drama and K-entertainment in general, and how it's now entering into the Philippines. Do we have that on a global scale in the US, in the Philippines? Do we have strong marketers? Do we have strong businesses that are backing it? Do Filipino audiences want to watch this? What about the audiences who aren't Filipino? Are our stories universal? And not just the creative part. For me, it's the system. I think entertainment, I mean, we all know this, is an industry and therefore it's a business. And what I think is lacking is everyone agrees on this. Everyone agrees Filipinos are talented. Like, it could be, you know, whether it's singing, dancing, you name it. You know, Filipinos, to some degree, have showcased their talent. The problem that I think exists is really more systematic in terms of how do we approach entering into entertainment and make it sustainable. And I say this because at One Down, we've supported a lot of different Filipino films. It's our ethos to really support Filipino creativity. And what I've often seen is that a lot of filmmakers and creators in general focus so much on the craft and the art and the piece, which I think is extremely important. I would never be someone to say that, you know, we should sacrifice any part of the creativity. But when I finally was an executive at Kumu, startup in the Philippines, when I was placed onto a TV project, one, yeah, I have to get it to as many millions of views as possible, but it also had to ROI. It had to bring in money. And the systems that I had to learn, not just from how is your production budget, but how is your marketing and your distribution, and are you getting revenue back from this, and how do you make this sustainable, and how does it relate to all these other KPIs? We asked ourselves, you know, when the Koreans in the 90s, and specifically the government and all these different parts of the Korean entertainment flywheel were built to kind of reinforce what it became as Korean entertainment, from K-pop to K-drama and K-entertainment in general, and how it's now entering into the Philippines. Do we have that on a global scale in the US, in the Philippines? Do we have strong marketers? Do we have strong businesses that are backing it? Do Filipino audiences want to watch this? What about the audiences who aren't Filipino? Are our stories universal? And not just the creative part. For me, it's the system. And I think that's really the place that we're excited to build alongside many innovators. And so, yeah, I don't doubt that we have the talent. I don't think that's the problem. I wonder if we have the systems.
You know, you mentioned the system, and I think you mentioned KPIs. KPIs are so, you know, I know that environment. I mean, you know, I've built tech startups and things like that, and worked in various companies and have seen success in business. And KPI is very much about drive and discipline. And then I think about what we were talking about with the Koreans. Have you seen what they've done with like building K-pop bands? It's a grind. You know, these guys, and I'm my dentist, Mitzi, she has her daughter who is Filipino and is part of a K-pop group. But, you know, it's a big investment, right? Her training, the audition process, you know, and you've seen like some documentaries about this, about how these K-pop, they pull together big auditions, they pull together a band, and they've kind of like built a business model around it. You know, they bring in the right support and everything like that. And it's a complete grind and a system that you're talking about that could be implemented into entertainment. And you know what I think the Philippines has figured out when it comes to that system? Beauty queens. I don't know if they have the most beauty queen winners, but they're up there. And if you talk to any of the beauty queens, we had Christy McCary on here on one of the podcasts, and she was explaining it. It's a grind. It's like boot camp. It's like beauty queen boot camp to become a star.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something we need?
So two things. One, I do agree with you. I believe other beauty queens actually come to the Philippines to train.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. I'm glad you bring that up. I never thought of it in a system from that perspective. But what is interesting, one of the things that builds really strong K-pop groups is the fandoms. Ppop groups, you know, in this country, what's really important is the fandoms. And people really want something to rally behind and believe in. What I think beauty queens have really demonstrated well is how do you represent where you're from? And from a cultural standpoint, I can understand that Filipinos have very large Filipino pride, but they also have a lot of large regional pride. And I think that's where beauty queens really do well. Now, I will just say my hot take that the standard of beauty that gets defined by beauty queens, I think can be expanded. I would love to see more beauty queens that showcase different like ranges of what Filipino beauty look like. And we are starting to see that.
Yeah.
But when you look at the system, just from like the K-pop perspective, it's not even just the idol training. Like for us to look at the system, it cannot be short term. Like when we look at the system of building out the music industry, the way that pageantry is, it's this full, more than a decade long of like, how do you invest in the music rights, the studio building, the choreography, and how this all goes into advertisements? Are you doing a reality TV show to build the audience while also getting in more talent? How do you launch them? Like, you have to build multiple industries all at the same time. And so it takes a very large, not only investment, but commitment to following through on everything to a T. And that's where, like, when you say KPIs and discipline, you have to be so disciplined that every single thing matters.
Right.
And one of the things that I really enjoy also is how nitpicky they are on the presentation of when you see a K-pop group. So for example, they're really curating the experience, the sonic, the musical experience versus, and I'm not knocking this, I'm just giving an example. It's like, well, when we do mall shows in the Philippines and you have stars going out here, the acoustics, the audio experience isn't the best. People aren't necessarily there for those stars. But how do you kind of reframe like the experience of our Ppop idols, our Ppop groups? And then how do we place them in such a powerful light so that the globe starts to recognize them? Like even Beanie, for example, one of the biggest Ppop girl groups that are coming out, how do we compare them to Little Mix? How can we compare them to Blackpink? How can we compare them to TLC? Like all these powerful international girl groups, how do we get there as a Filipino product?
Right.
And I think that's very interesting, but it's all a system building play.
It must be the system. I don't know, because that one thing I learned about from the beauty queens that were explaining it to me, I used to think my prejudice, or my ignorance would tell me, okay, well, if you're genetically gifted with beauty in your country, you're going to win more beauty contests, right? But that's not the case. What they go through is this entire rigor. They train in their heels. They'll sit there and answer questions and answers. They'll practice their catwalk. They they work out and lift weights. They do all sorts of stuff, and it's all completely supported by the system or the people behind it for whatever reason, right? And then you realize, okay, it's the details, like you mentioned. It's understanding the details and how to win in all those details, right? That matter. It's all the hard work that goes behind it, right? Another example of why, let's talk about athletics here, right? Why is it that the Philippines is so bad in the Olympics? But then you look at guys like Manny Pacquiao. Are Filipinos unathletic? I don't think so. Not at all. In fact, if anything, who's that recent gold medal winner?
Carlos
Yeah,
Hilo.
right? And he was the shining beacon, right? If you live in the Philippines, you understand there is like really no system and support for this. There's no parks here.
Yeah.
We wanted to go play baseball the other day with Swan's kid, and like we can't. There's nowhere we can go.
Yeah, that's actually something that I recently started to understand more so because of, and this is not my expertise at all, I'm just repeating something someone told me, but just like understanding zoning regulations and why there are no parks built. It's not something I actually understand too well, but it is something that I started to notice. And I think I started noticing it more so when I looked at or started considering the health perspective of like public health and health equity, and just the importance of having spaces and parks and recreation. And I'm thinking about like the communities that I come from in America that matter to me in terms of Filipinos having access to these resources. But then that same concept occurs here in the Philippines. Like, do we have parks to that same degree? So I do agree, and I think it's interesting that you would relate that also. Like, I was more so thinking of like funding from the like athlete perspective, but you're absolutely right. Are we even incentivized or even encouraged to just be active in general?
Absolutely. Part of it is cultural, part of it is the system. And if you think about the ones that have made it in America, think about the Black community, right? They've been able to capitalize on the system that's in America, right? And so my question is, why hasn't other Asian Americans more Asian Americans have broken into that system? You know, maybe they weren't given the chances. I don't know.
Yeah. I think my major thing that is important is, one, how do we continue to recognize the contributions of the first people who did a thing, right? So when I think of Filipinos in dance, specifically in hip hop, even for like Jabberwockies, for example, for me, it's important to recognize that hip hop is a byproduct of communities of color, specifically Black people. When I kind of think about it a little bit more, and I think of America's Best Dance Crew, I also think it's a system by white people to popularize hip hop, to make it profitable, when Black culture has been criminalized and hip hop has been criminalized, and Filipinos, to some degree, have helped in popularizing hip hop to make it profitable for white people.